Hey, Scott Jordan and Mark Warner here for what could be our last Jancast of 2024. Jancast number 181, Thursday, December 19th, 2024. Are you ready for the holidays, Mark? Because we are ready with a Jancast to end out the year, right?
December 19th, Christmas, holiday,
Yeah.
New Year's. Sounds like we're getting all ready for the parties.
Yeah. Yeah, some party. We're not exactly sure what party, but some party. Yeah.
If you're a loyal Jancast.com listener, you can invite us to your parties.
Well, Mark, after putting together some of the show notes for this one, we've really changed the show up a lot this year, I think. For the not that it was bad before, but I think we put out some really good stuff. A lot of controversy going on, but it's all about making ourselves safer and all that stuff at work and everything else. But it's pretty been an interesting year, huh?
Jancast, podcasting to a cleaner and healthier world, which was our upgraded tagline.
That's
So
right.
we've been all about health, which is pretty cool. And a whole lot of stuff's been on the news in 2024.
Yeah,
Even stuff recently about controlling germs in the environment, trying to identify them. One of the things that we talked about a long time ago is if we knew now what we knew, if we knew back in 2020 what we know now about
yeah,
transmission of things like COVID, we might have done things very differently. And, that changed the world in many ways, I think, Scott. I
yeah,
think it drove everybody beyond just the myth and some of the misinformation that existed into what's the science? How do
yeah.
we really do this, right? So, a couple articles have hit recently. A lot of conversations you and I have had lately had to do with germs and different types of pathogens and diseases. So, I think that what we've done all year set the stage for us to go down this era of investigating the science of cleaning.
Yeah, well, who would have thought when we did show number 163, just prior to the one that I'm going to talk about here, 164, I casually said that not ATP, the sprayers and stuff didn't work. And it's like, oh wow, we got a lot of
That
stuff.
was
I'm
161
sorry,
back in
161.
January.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was hilarious because we were like, oh, these things don't work. Because we had seen so many that didn't work, and we had seen so many claims that seemed to be way over
yeah,
the top.
yeah,
And, we're big believers. If it sounds too good to be true, it is
yeah.
too good to be true.
So little did
But
we know there was one manufacturer that was actually making a sprayer that worked, which kind
yes,
of validated all of our comments about the ones that didn't work. But
yes.
we gave that person their time on the show. So 161 on January 16th. I got the dates right now.
Yeah. And that was Steve Cooper,
Yeah,
who I had no idea that he had patented a lot of the technology used in disinfection
yeah,
as an independent scientist, and had engaged with a couple folks in order to produce valid electrostatic sprayers. And, credit where credit's due. That was, he got engaged with Bioplanet, and
yeah.
they took his patents and ran with it. And we got to spend some time with Steve figuring out what is it that makes them work and what is it that some of them don't do.
Yeah.
He fully acknowledged that our lack of faith in electrostatic sprayers was based on valid problems, but our mistake was saying all.
Yeah.
And who knew that there was something out there that actually
Even
could do
though
it?
it was pretty close to all.
Pretty close to all. Yeah, and he
And then
acknowledged
you
that.
and then you always had the product that over excelled by not only did it not work, it would also shock you when you touched it in a certain spot to remind you that it was actually plugged in, even though it wasn't doing anything to anything else. But
The more amazing part of that with Steve Cooper is that Steve Cooper and I became pretty friendly after that call. We continued to engage throughout the year 2024. I hooked up with him down in Tennessee while I
yep,
was doing some work in Tennessee, and that's kind of neat. So you never know how you make new friends, new acquaintances in life. Jancast.com is a great.
I've heard that a lot of those green electrostatic sprayers that were made by a company, we won't mention their name, but they're out of business. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of Jansan distributors that are selling those as plant for watering plants. It's pretty good for that, apparently. Nothing else, but enough said on that.
So that kind of led us into technology, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
Jancast 164 was Bob Ferguson, who's a scientist related to adenosine triphosphate meters, commonly known
Hmm.
as ATP meters. And you and I had said a few words about that. Like there's some sketchy things about knowing how to use them right, and are the readings valid, and do people know how to hold them and all that. And
Yeah, who would
we
have thought you have
addressed
to
all
hold
of
the
that.
unit as, yeah, who would have thought you have to hold the unit a certain way to get accurate results out of it?
Yeah,
What
yep.
could go
So
wrong with that, right?
I remember somebody coming up to me one time as I swabbed the whole bathroom with this cotton swab. Just plug it in there, we'll get a reading. I'm like, that's not how you do it. You go 4 inches by 4 inches and you rotate it and you put it in. You got to make sure it's vertical and not horizontal. And now you got to read. You can check down the road to see if you're doing better or worse. But so many people were out there just swabbing everything like without any
Well, if you remember, people were washing their apples and vegetables too because they thought, stuff was which we learned later on in a later Jancast that there's a whole bunch of other areas you need to worry about other than just vegetables, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
show number 166, we had the pleasure of having our good friend Matt Shank on, who at that point was president of the ISSA. Now he is in the family of has-beens like myself, who's now a past president because he was his year was done at the show that we just attended in Las Vegas. So it was nice to find out the future of the ISSA from the current ISSA president.
With all that said, I got to put it out there, Matt. So obviously it was all in good fun, but I'm doing a recorded thing on camera with Jeff Cross. And Matt jumps behind Jeff and starts making faces at me and stuff and caused me to completely crack up during my interview.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
reached out and I said, "What the heck?" And he goes, "All in good fun, my friend, all in good fun." So, Matt,
Well,
I had to put it out there, man.
Well, a past president can do stuff like that. If he was
Yeah.
actually president at the time, he wouldn't have done it. But he figured, hey, I'm just the international director now. I can do anything I want. What are they
Oh,
going
it
to
was an hour before he became a
do?
pastor.
I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt there.
So anyway, Matt, all in good fun, my friend. So
Yep. And that led us into the now utterly famous worldwide Jancast that talked about toilet bloom.
toilet plumes and
Remember
sink
that for the holiday.
plumes
Remember
and
that for your Christmas dinner, folks.
carpet stomp plumes and yeah, Dr. Charles Gerba talking about how things, everyday things in restrooms. I think he said he lives in the restroom. Like that was one of his comments. But
Yeah.
he had done all the studies on what happens when you flush a toilet and where you should keep your toothbrush. And then that led into the sink splash and it led into all of that had to do with the fact that we all have started to recognize that surfaces contribute to the quality of the
Yeah.
air, and
Yeah.
the air can contribute to the quality of surfaces because they interact.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the start of other Gencasts.
Yeah. It's
That was like the
let us
first
down that whole
acknowledgement.
route.
Yeah, he had done things with the University of Arizona regarding this interaction. So that led us down the path to 170, Gencast 170, Scott.
Hmm. Yeah. It's all about indoor air quality, right?
Yeah, so we had on Dinesh Wadhwani of Think
Oh
Light
yeah.
Air talking about how we can test the air to get some indirect correlation, or actually a direct correlation, with surface cleanliness. If the air is bad, the surfaces can't be good. If the surfaces are bad, the air can't be good because everything we do interacts.
Right.
And so he talked about that, and we talked about Dr. Charles Gerba on that
Well, I
particular
think the really cool thing
episode.
about the indoor air quality one was that they pretty much determined that if they had the information that they had when we had this Jancast, which was in April, or no, it was June. Um, if we had known that at the very beginning of the pandemic, because I think what was the time period between cleaning and letting students back into the room that was determined
12
based on
minutes. So they documented 12 minutes that the act of sanitizing cafeteria tables, the mere act of sanitizing tables properly, does disrupt the surface enough to broadcast some elements into the air. And a monitor that can read zero point 0.1 micron materials, which is SARS-CoV-2 and pertussis and whooping cough and some of the things that can really make you sick. If it can read that, it shows that for the first 12 minutes, the air is actually not particularly safe.
that. Yeah.
So that was adopted as a policy of to sanitize tables and allow 12 minutes before students come back in and eat. And I was fascinated by that.
Well, and it's very possible that if we had known all that stuff at the very beginning, we might not have closed schools down, which would have been life-changing in the right direction versus what ended up happening and all those poor kids that kind of missed out on a year and a half of normal life as a kid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, probably the saddest element of what happened with schools were uh, the elimination of school sports
yeah,
and the fact that kids that were getting ready to graduate in 2020, 2021, they were kind of not necessarily given the same kind of graduation ceremonies that might have
yeah,
happened prior to COVID. So,
yeah,
that was kind of sad.
yeah, yeah,
I know a couple friends of mine who had kids that were in high school during that time, and the biggest negative that affected them is that they were athletes. Their kids were athletes, and they were looking for scholarships.
oh yeah, yeah,
And the fact that they couldn't really play in high school sports kind of limited their ability to go after athletic scholarships in college.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, it would have been nice to know what we know now. Back then, we could have avoided all that, but who knew?
yeah. So then that led us into 173, and we had a special guest from a new division of the ISSA, right?
Yeah, Linda Liebert.
Yeah,
Actually, she's involved with the Healthcare Services Institute, and they just had a really big symposium, Scott, in Vegas during the
yeah,
ISSA show, kind of a gathering of all people involved with healthcare. And her whole issue went kind of deeper on surfaces. It had to do with the fact that most things that you try to disinfect are made up of more than one thing.
yeah,
They're manufactured by plastics and metals and glass, and all of them have different reactions to disinfectants. You think about, let's say, a 1 to 10 solution of household bleach. It's got a pH of around 13, and it's got enough corrosivity to actually damage things like stainless steel
yeah,
or plexiglass, maybe. So her point was that a lot of things that we look at, we have to look at the surfaces themselves. And her mission is to try to get healthcare to take a holistic view on how hospitals and healthcare facilities are built and make sure the surfaces that they're using aren't potentially damaged by disinfectants.
yeah, yeah,
So I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. Nice that she's under the fold of ISSA too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But
after
then,
that, we had my buddy Mark Drozdoff, who I met through the IICRC 410 infection control committees. And he's got a background involved with not just indoor air quality, but ISO, which is also a manufacturer form of certification for good practices of manufacturing. And he got into a deep conversation about hazard identification and
yeah,
remediation. And
yeah.
he's an industrial hygienist. He teaches that
Hmm.
as a professor. So that was pretty fascinating, you know. I think, Scott, at this point, we've probably earned some degree of complementary degree
Yeah,
by
yeah,
embracing all these college professors the way we have. You know, Dr. J got a honorary doctorate out of Temple
There
University.
you go.
All
Okay.
right, so I'm thinking, we might be due for an honorary
Okay.
doctorate.
So can can Dr. Gavin, can he bestow upon us a doctorate degree? Because he's a doctor, he should be able to give us one too, right?
I know, and
'Cause
he works with Penn
that was our next
State.
show.
He works with Penn State. We
Yeah.
chatted about all that in October, and I think he's the guy to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So he's got that saying, healthy buildings, healthy people. This is the
yes.
vision. So there you go. A new project at the ISSA
Well, beyond the new
and Penn
project
State.
side of it,
Yeah.
they were one of the first organizations, one of the first recipients of a multi-million dollar
Yeah.
grant in order to pursue the idea that if we make our buildings healthier by how we clean them and how we build them and all of that, then we make our people healthier.
Yep.
And that's, again, that's the whole science thing that's caused hundreds of thousands of Jancast listeners to flock to this show.
That's right. That's right. So all good stuff. So that's a
Well,
kind of a recap of what's coming next year, right?
yeah, but before we go into that, we should
Oh,
talk about the huge gathering we had of Jancast.com listeners at the ISSA show.
yeah. Oh, the party, you mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gigantic. I mean, if you missed it, shame on you. Like
Yeah, we
next
got in a lot
year,
of trouble for having that many people in our booth at
yeah,
the
it
same
was
time. They said,
amazing.
"What's going on here? What exactly is the story?" And we forgot to commandeer a golf cart while we were there too. We were going to
Yes,
drive
yes.
around,
Yeah.
but yeah, we had
So how do we top that in 2025? That's what you were going to ask me, right?
That's right. Well, we're going to continue the science theme because it's real, first off, and why not continue with stuff that's real, right? And we got a whole bunch
Absolutely.
of future guests that we can bring back some of the same people we just talked about. It's still a growing subject and more going on every day, right?
Well, we've had some commitments from some folks that we had interviewed before that we've just talked about that said
Yep,
they'd love to get back and kind of go deeper on the conversation and what they started.
yep.
The idea of maybe collaborating two of them together would make a neat little panel discussion for a Gencast for
So
2025.
we can have a kind of like those competitions they have where the robots ram into each other. We can have a fight against the toilet bloom and carpet bloom, and which one's more dangerous?
So we could do like they do on the Food Network, Tournament of Champions, who
What can kill you the quickest?
looking.
How to not get kind of like that other game where you have to stop as you're running towards what's the name of that? The Korean game show where they're killing the people off. Whatever.
It'll come to me. It'll
Yeah,
come to me.
yeah, I've
But
seen
that
them.
I think that's kind of neat that some of these folks got to know
Squid
other
Game. Squid
folks.
Game. That's it.
Squid Game, yeah. So the like I know that Dinesh hooked up with Dr. Gerba.
Yeah,
I know the three of them want to hook up with Mark Drozdoff. They all talk about indoor air quality and surface cleanliness and
yeah,
that interaction. And that might make an interesting show for 2025.
yeah,
They've expressed a willingness in that. And um, another person that expressed a willingness is works with the ISSA and is involved with translations of things into
right.
Spanish to help Latin America. And that would be really cool.
Yeah,
So, and beyond all that, Scott, we're looking for more. We're
that's
looking
right.
for
More
additional.
subjects, more guests. And for those of you that usually get the Jancast viewing based on the email sent out, I'm going to put a new link on the Jancast page that'll take you to our YouTube channel because we have a different channel for Jancast. We have a different channel for ISSA. So if you want to look up any of these shows we referred to, the easiest way is to go to the YouTube channel and scroll to the show number, whatever that you want to watch, and watch it right there. Just because we don't have every single show on the Jancast page, just because it ends up being a space problem. So we've done a lot of these shows over the years, so the easiest way is the YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe there as well.
So when you say we've done a lot of these shows, I mean, rumor has it that we've done 181 of them.
Well, more than 181 because the count didn't start at the very beginning. I think we left out about 70 or so shows because the early ones were just audio
Yeah, the
before the
audio, we
internet.
were using iPhones.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it for 2024, unless we decide to come back with another show that we haven't thought of yet. But it's been great, great year. Very, very good feedback. Nice putting out all this science-related stuff because it's real, right?
Well, the best part is that 2025 can only be better than
Yep.
2024 in so many ways. So, really looking forward to 2025.
Yep. Yep. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks for being fans. And send us some suggestions on subjects or people you'd like us to talk to, and we'll get on it for next year.
Even if those people might be you yourself, reach out.
That's right. Okay. Happy
Thanks,
holidays.
everybody.
See ya.